Most history books skip this part. They tell you when humans built cities, when they invented writing, when they learned to farm. But they rarely mention something stranger. Long before civilization existed, before kings, before temples, before anyone recorded a single word, human beings were gathering in the darkness and making music. And nobody knows exactly why. Think about that for a moment. 40,000 years ago, a group of people sits inside a cave somewhere in what is now Germany. Outside, wolves move through the forests. Winter temperatures can kill. Every day is uncertain. And yet someone spends hours carving holes into a bird bone. Not to make a weapon. Not to make a tool. But to make sound. The oldest known flutes ever discovered are around 40,000 years old. They were found deep inside caves, crafted from bird bones and mammoth ivory. The craftsmanship is astonishing. Precise spacing, careful shaping, intentional design. These were not primitive experiments. They were instruments made by people who already understood music. And that's where the mystery begins. Because if humans were building sophisticated instruments 40,000 years ago, music itself must be much older. Much older. The flute is not the beginning of the story. It's evidence that the story had already been unfolding for thousands of years. Maybe tens of thousands. Possibly longer. And that raises a disturbing question. Why would a species struggling to survive spend precious time creating music? Every calorie mattered. Every hour mattered. Life was dangerous. Yet humans kept singing, kept drumming, kept making rhythm. It doesn't make sense if music is merely entertainment. But ancient history suggests it was never just entertainment. To understand why, we have to enter a world that no longer exists. Imagine a small group of hunter-gatherers moving across an Ice Age landscape. There are no governments, no laws, no police, no written records, only people. A few dozen individuals whose survival depends entirely on each other. One mistake could mean starvation. One conflict could split the group apart. One predator could end everything. In that environment, cooperation becomes a matter of life and death. And cooperation is fragile. Humans are naturally competitive. We disagree. We form rivalries. We protect our own interests. Those tendencies existed 100,000 years ago just as they exist today. The question is how ancient groups prevented themselves from falling apart. And here's where music becomes unexpectedly important. Modern studies show that when people sing together, their breathing synchronizes. Their heart rates begin to align. Their attention focuses on the same rhythm. Individuals start functioning more like a single unit. Today we experience this during concerts, religious ceremonies, military marches, sporting events, and national anthems. But our ancestors discovered the effect long before they understood the science. They simply noticed what happened. A group that moved together felt united. A group that sang together trusted each other more. A group connected by rhythm survived better. And suddenly music starts looking less like art and more like technology. An ancient technology for creating social bonds. A tool for turning individuals into tribes. But archaeologists found something even stranger. And it changes the story completely. Some researchers believe music may have existed before fully developed language. Not after. Before. At first, that sounds impossible. Language feels essential. Music feels optional. Yet when scientists study infants, they notice something curious. Babies respond to rhythm and melody before they understand words. Even today, parents across every known culture instinctively use musical patterns when speaking to children. The pitch rises. The rhythm slows. The voice becomes almost song-like. Nobody teaches this. Humans simply do it. Which suggests something ancient is happening beneath awareness. Some evolutionary researchers believe early humans may have communicated emotions through rhythm, tone, and vocal patterns long before language became complex. If that's true, then music is not a byproduct of communication. It may be one of its ancestors. The roots of music could reach back toward the roots of language itself. And suddenly the timeline becomes almost unimaginable. Not 40,000 years. Not 100,000 years. Potentially hundreds of thousands. Stretching toward the dawn of our species. But here's where the story becomes darker. Because music wasn't always about beauty. It wasn't always about joy. Ancient music likely emerged in a world dominated by fear. Fear of predators. Fear of starvation. Fear of isolation. Fear of death. Many early musical behaviors probably developed during rituals surrounding danger and uncertainty. Rhythmic chanting before hunts. Ceremonies after deaths. Group gatherings during crises. Moments when people desperately needed reassurance that they belonged to something larger than themselves. Music gave structure to chaos. When the world felt unpredictable, rhythm remained predictable. The beat continued. The pattern repeated. And the human brain found comfort in that certainty. Thousands of years later, our brains still respond the same way. A steady rhythm can calm anxiety. A familiar song can trigger powerful memories. A shared musical experience can make strangers feel connected. The environment changed. The mechanism did not. And here's what historians often miss. The story of music is not really about instruments. It's not even about sound. It's about belonging. Music solved one of humanity's oldest problems. How do you convince dozens of unrelated individuals to think, feel, and act as a group? How do you create unity among people who might otherwise drift apart? Music was one answer. Perhaps one of the earliest answers. Because beneath every melody lies something older than culture. Something older than civilization. A deep biological desire to connect. What ancient humans discovered wasn't merely music. They discovered a way to synchronize minds. A way to align emotions. A way to transform many individuals into one community. And that's where this story becomes surprisingly personal. Because the same psychological machinery is still operating inside you. When a crowd sings together at a concert. When fans chant inside a stadium. When worshippers sing in a church, mosque, or temple. When soldiers march in step. When friends gather around a fire and sing songs they all know. The ancient mechanism activates again. The context changes. The psychology remains. What our ancestors experienced beside fires tens of thousands of years ago still echoes through modern life. Not because humans refused to evolve, but because certain solutions worked too well to disappear. And that's the revelation hidden inside this story. Music survived every major transformation in human history. Ice ages, migrations, empires, wars, religions, revolutions. Languages rose and vanished. Civilizations appeared and collapsed. Yet music endured, not because it was useful in the ordinary sense. Because it answered a permanent human need. The need to feel connected. The need to belong. The need to know we are not facing the darkness alone. So how did ancient humans discover music? The honest answer is that nobody knows. The evidence fades into prehistory. The trail eventually disappears, but the clues point towards something remarkable. Music was never a luxury added after survival. It may have been part of survival from the very beginning. An invisible tool that helped fragile groups become enduring communities. A solution to problems so ancient we no longer notice them. And perhaps that's why music still feels strangely powerful today. Not because it entertains us, but because some part of the human mind remembers what it was originally for. The history they didn't teach you is always more interesting. And always more human than you expected. The first musicians were not performing for fame. They were navigating uncertainty, fear, belonging, and survival. The sounds they created traveled farther than they ever could have imagined. Across caves, across continents, across tens of thousands of years, until they reached you. And once you see that pattern, you start seeing it everywhere. Every melody, every rhythm, every song stuck in your head. A small reminder that the ancient world never really disappeared. It simply learned a new tune.